Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fantastic edition of Sitback with Shaq and Anu. And unfortunately, as you can see, Anu is not here. Other commitments, sadly, he's not on the show today. But we will definitely be driving in all the stuff that we have for you today. As always, on the show every day, Monday to Thursday, we're coming to you live on Channel 1 Dialogue TV, and of course Portal platforms on YouTube, where we bring in different guests. We talk about trending topics in Sri Lanka. We talk about hot subjects in Sri Lanka, which actually affects each and every one of us, and we bring in authorities in those areas and have a little candid chat with them, have a nice conversation, just bring out all the answers that you want to ask. Remember, you also have the opportunity of sending in your questions for our guest today. And today, a guest that, of course, really does not need an introduction, especially if you are in the marketing fraternity, Gamika De Silva. Good evening.
Good evening, Shaq.
Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be in the show, and I've watched almost all the episodes. The fantastic shows. Honored to be here.
Thank you so much. And Gamika, we've known each other for a very long time also.
Quite
a
very long time.
We worked together. We obviously had a great association. And yes, Gamika is a fantastic individual for us to bring on the show, because there are quite a few things that we would like to talk about right here on the show. A big thank you also to our wonderful sponsors. Daraz on the show with us. Remember, before we dive deep into the conversation with Gamika, we're also going to basically give you stuff that you can do on the show, a chance for you to win on the deal of the day. All those details coming up right now. Now it's time for us to jump in and find out what you can win today on the deal of the day, courtesy of Daraz. Here we go. All right, straight up for you. It's a very simple, very straightforward promotion. That is what you can win today. A power bank, an MI power bank. That's the Daraz deal of the day. It's a portable power bank for you. All you need to do right now, jump on the Daraz app and send us a screenshot of the deal from the app, and WhatsApp your screenshot right now to this number 075 011 7777 075 011 7777. That is the Daraz deal of the day, and the first person who sends in that screenshot is actually going to walk off with that power bank, and we will reveal the winner at the end of the show. Now, time for us to jump into the show. As always, on the show, we start off with a daily poll, and the poll is always constructed with either the individual on the show or also constructed with what we're talking about on the show today. So this is your daily poll right now.
Welcome to the universe of Daraz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Daraz.
Thanks so much. Welcome back to the show. It's time for us to jump into the poll of the day. What do we have on the show today? Is gold a better investment than money in the bank? Yes or no? You remember, that is the number for you to WhatsApp. It's 077 669 1590. After all, we're talking about banks, we're talking about credit cards, we're talking about interest rates, we're talking about marketing per se. The question for you is, under the current crisis also at the end of the day, is gold a better investment than money in the bank? Yes or no? You can WhatsApp your answers to that number, 077 669 1590. And at the end of the show, we will let you know as to exactly where the survey stands. Everybody watching us on Channel 1 Dialogue TV and everyone on our YouTube platforms on PodHub. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Time for us to jump straight into the conversation. Gamika, you are a marketeer by profession. Of course, you've been in the industry for many, many years. You obviously lectured to many budding marketing students out there. Sitting as the head of marketing and sales of one of the biggest banks in the country, how does that even work out for you? I mean, is a banking industry interesting, is what I want to basically ask. I mean, marketing is all about, trying to push the needle, isn't it?
Yeah, Shaq. I mean, if I look at my career, I've been right throughout, other than few spans, I mean, I've been right throughout being in service marketing.
Yeah.
Insurance to telecommunication. I've been in FMCGs and consumer durables as well. So banking is a different ballgame altogether.
For sure.
I mean, if you look at marketing per se in the banking industry, you have a very different role than in, let's say, my closest comparison is telecommunication.
Right.
What you did at telecommunication industry to banking in terms of marketing is very, very different. I mean, it's very interesting. It's very challenging. I mean, you have a different set of challenges altogether. How marketing, how much of leadership that marketing can give a bank, and how does it reflect back on the performance, etc. Because you have different cogs in the wheel in a bank.
Yeah.
So it poses a lot of challenges. I mean, it may look as a little bit boring from outside, but when you really deep dive into it, it's a very interesting.
I mean, it's always the case, isn't it? Especially when a financial market comes into play. Anybody who's outside the financial market, it's like, but once you're in it, in the number crunching and the data and so much, of course, it can definitely be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, all of us as marketers, we love to have our, the glamour and the fun and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I mean, as long as you're ready to challenge that in the banking field, also there is opportunity.
Of course there is. So basically, let's start talking about the credit cards, and let's start talking about the spend pattern. A couple of years ago, we obviously were hit with the pandemic. People were obviously at home, but screen time was high. So credit card usage was also very high. Now, 2 years later down the line, we're going through an economic crisis. How has the pattern changed?
See, there's I would say the different areas have changed compared to 2020, 2021 and come into 2022 with, of course, the different set of challenges. If you specifically talk about the credit card market, what I have seen from an industry as well as from our bank's point of view, the spending has gone up.
Okay.
The spending has gone up and the number of transactions have also gone up.
Right.
This is probably due to many reasons. I mean, one is the ticket size has gone up in a transaction because your inflation, I mean, if you look at your supermarket bill from maybe 1 year ago to now, it would have gone up by about 60-70%.
For
so
sure.
that reflects back in terms of your credit card spending. Also, the number of transactions, the frequency of transactions have gone up. There's a huge shift. I mean, from the COVID time to now, there's a huge shift in terms of online purchasing. You see online platforms, especially locally, people have moved in, and Sri Lankans were initially very scared of buying online.
Right.
You want to experience the product, touch and feel the product. Today, supermarkets, groceries, you order online. And now if you look at credit card offers, many banks, our competitor banks, the peer banks, we give happy hour online.
That's right.
So you just log in, you don't have full to go around.
Yeah.
But you just log in and order your groceries. So these patterns have been changing.
Okay.
So that's a very interesting phenomenon. And on the other side, we have also seen the debit card usage has gone up drastically.
Okay.
So people have shifted from using credit card to more debit card because it's cash in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with the psych off in terms of, being in debt to using your own cash.
Yeah,
so, of course, I mean, people have they have looked at in terms of controlling their expenses, but of course in terms of the mode of using, and people have got smarter in terms of using their credit cards.
But wouldn't you actually want to hold on to your cash at a time like this?
See, it depends on your requirement. I have seen research. I mean, there are three very clear segments of in the market who uses cards. There's a set who will always look at the deals that you want to spend the card because they don't look at the value they will obviously look at your statement at the end of the month and they will settle it off.
Right.
There is a set that who hates credit cards, but they keep it as a emergency tool. Yeah.
We always do that, but every day that's an emergency. Why is that? We always have an emergency card which is used most often.
See, that's the segment that you fall into. I would say the
terrible segment.
Terrible segment, I promise. See, you have planned out your groceries and you have planned out your entire cycle of the month's usage. But of course, like whenever you see a deal that you will use your credit card and make sure that you buy it and consume that services. So there's a segment where they are very smart. They know exactly what they want to do and then control their spends based on your card as well.
Right.
The other segment I was telling you about, the guys who hate the credit card. They don't even like to look at a message from the bank saying that 50% off or 60% off. They will just keep it to use it for maybe installment plan, emergency on hospitalization, healthcare, etc. So they will use it for that. So those are three distinct segments I have seen in the market.
Now, obviously, in the last couple of, I think maybe 6 or 7 months also, we've seen a drastic rise in interest rates as far as credit cards are concerned, from where it was to where it is right now. Clearly, it's not boiling down to a bank, but it is an initiative and a gazette that's been given by the central bank to hold on to as much cash as possible or bring in as much cash as possible. Has that affected the spend?
It has not, actually. That's why I said in terms of the spending, the value of spending has gone up and the frequency has gone up, and obviously the ticket size has gone up, and we don't see a huge impact. But the negative side I have seen is the guys who hold on to multiple cards probably would want to get rid of 1 or 2 cards and stick to maybe one primary card.
Right.
So you don't want to have 5 cards in your wallet and just pay your annual fees and etc. So you don't want to be in debt to everything. So they probably consolidate onto one bank and maybe use 1 or maybe maximum of 2 cards. So that's a trend I have seen.
Right.
In terms of spending pattern, I mean, there's no major impact of it. I mean, there is a huge impact in terms of the inflation coming in. Your ticket size has gone up.
Right.
Of course, the interest rate is a concern. A lot of people are worried about it. I mean, there's a huge story around it, and for me, I see it as a solution for a certain. I mean, if you look at the current market conditions and the economic conditions, it is a solution right now.
Right. Okay. Now, also, Seylan is a bank that, of course, has always come up with some great deals, especially the 0% interest scheme. Does that work now in a situation like this? Can you afford to do something like that?
See, again, 0% installment schemes, you have 2 segments. One is absolutely 0% installment schemes. The other ones are easy payment schemes. There's an interest component or a handling fee have been added. Now, this handling fee also has interest components for 3 months, 6 months, 12, 24, etc.
Right.
But I've seen people even, you do the transaction, let's say, sometimes you give it at 25,000 and above transactions, you call and convert into installments plan. Because your cash flow is such that you can actually plan it out for 12 months or 6 months and ease it off, but you get the deal, I mean, in terms of the product or service that you want to consume right now. So there is a trend, but in terms of looking at the top 5 categories that people spend, supermarkets have remained unchanged and the value has gone up.
Right. No choice.
No choice.
you have to buy your groceries. It doesn't matter how expensive your tomatoes are, you still have to buy it, right?
Absolutely. Surprise, surprise, January 2022, fuel was the second category.
Right.
But fuel has dropped down to about 5th place, obviously.
Yeah, right? Obviously.
But healthcare has come up.
Okay.
Healthcare has been in the top 5 always. Now it's, last I saw it was about 3rd or 4th category in terms of our portfolio. I'm sure that across the market also it's a similar pattern that you can see.
Okay. Something else that I think by the way, if, like I said earlier on, Gamika can be more than happy to answer your questions if you got those questions. That's your number, 077 669 1590. One thing we're not doing is we're not actually offering over-the-counter loans at the moment. Not on this show. Maybe the next time he comes on, he might be able to.
Don't put me on the spot for that.
Over-the-counter loans, how's that? On live TV. Something we also is a concern with lots obviously using credit cards is the curb in international credit card spending, which is making it so difficult even to go abroad. Gamika, now what happens, unlike how it was before, those days, maybe even a year and a half ago, going abroad was a breeze for many people. Many people. Buy the ticket, go to the bank, get your dollars, sort it out, now go off. Now it is, oh my God, you need a holiday to actually from planning that holiday, not even a holiday from a holiday.
Yeah.
But how is that working? It's really difficult. I know it's difficult. I know, you don't necessarily have an answer to it. But I'm sure you must be getting a lot of backlash on this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to empathize with the current situation. Obviously, like we need to have strict policies. We need to bite this bitter pill to go through this, because like, the foreign currency outflow, all that. Even for the banks, Shaq, I mean, our vendors, the key vendors who are providing credit card services, we need to pay them off dollars.
Right.
So your conversion rate, if you look at it, our margins are getting thinner. So it's a huge challenge across, I mean, for the bank, for the vendor, and for the consumer as well. I believe if we hold on to this situation, tighten our belts and go through this phase, I'm sure that, as a country, as a community, that we can come through this and, we'll see a better future.
Right.
But right now, that's a challenge. But of course, banks, I know I'm talking on behalf of the rest of the banks as well. We have been flexible when it comes to real situations. We have like opened up certain ones within the regulations, of course, allowed certain customers to use their credit cards cross-border. Of course, the cross-border transactions have come down drastically.
Okay.
Obviously, I mean, like, that's obvious reason. But we have been flexible in terms of when the bare necessities comes in, we have been supporting that cause as well.
You must be finding it very difficult, especially with the individuals who frequently travel. That must be the biggest problem.
That's a huge challenge.
It's a huge challenge, right? I mean, what's the limit? I mean, $50 a day? Or, I mean, what can you do with that, Gamika?
I have actually lost track in terms of keeping
well, there you go.
the limits. But, I mean, like, we get continuous calls and asking for temporary enhancements to increase the limits temporary. So, I mean, with certain controls, we have done that. But, of course, we need to stick to the regulations and, because we need to support the Central Bank of Sri Lanka to control the outflow of currency from the country.
Right. Okay. So, basically, we're talking about the stuff that, of course, happens in a banking sector, being the head of marketing also. Credit cards, like we spoke about, are a very integral arm of any financial institution. How do you, as a marketer, still push people to spend credit cards in a time like this, where your disposable income is, pretty low?
Challenge, yeah. So, as a bank, what we have done is we have positioned our cards as the essential card. I mean, we focus in terms of the deals that are essential for you. For example, if you look at right now, the last couple of months, our credit card have been focusing on the supermarkets and the groceries that you need.
Right.
And at a time where you couldn't travel, go to the supermarket even, we have opened up online deals, given certain particular hours to, with 30%, 40% off. So pretty much we have worked out the pattern of our portfolio and given them what is needed. And we have also extended our services into the healthcare sector, because that's a big burden on the market, big burden on the consumer. So we have tied up with a lot of hospitals, given easy payment plans, etc. So even our easy payment plans, we have extended into education, because that's something that you will not compromise with for your kids as well. So we have given that offers as well. So all in all, Shaq, we have cut down on a lot of areas that we were very lavish in terms of the local holidays to all that stuff maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So we have cut down from the frills to coming into the bare requirements and, position them as an essential requirement. So, and, given the consumer what they really need at this particular time.
Now, in a situation like this, though, what products are really high in demand as far as a bank is concerned? Sitting at a place where you need to push your products.
Yeah.
Credit cards is not the only thing that's there. I mean, in an economic crisis where you need to tighten your belt, from a bank's point of view, what's like the most in-demand product at the moment?
See, from a bank's point of view, we need to have a balance in terms of our deposits and as well as the lending.
Right.
Because we take the money from the customers from the deposits and lend it at, at a profit.
Right.
So that's what we need to do. From a consumer's point of view, of course, the demands have fluctuated. Let's say, for example, your housing loans, for example. People would have probably postponed their decisions.
Right.
But I cannot rule out saying that, the demand has dropped down. There is a market.
Okay.
There are people who are looking for housing loans. There are people who are looking for personal loans. Even credit cards, there are new issuance are happening, but it's not at the scale it used to happen.
Right.
So there is obviously a drop down, and, banks have also tightened in terms of their criteria of issuing. Even the loans, credit cards, we have tightened our process. All the banks have taken stringent measurements, because you need to protect your depositors' funds as well.
Yes.
On the other side, there is a demand for the tools for savings as well. I mean, like, of course, like, people consider in terms of the interest, because right now, there are short-term deposits being marketed, long-term savings plans being marketed, kids savings plans, and these are things that are in the market. Of course, it's a difficult time for the banks to canvas business as they want, but we need to be prudent in terms of managing our funds and making, the shareholders profitable, as well as pay the interest to the customers who are deposited as well.
It's funny that you said that most of the stuff, of course, the demand hasn't completely dropped. I think that really puts down to the fact that what a resilient lot we really are.
Absolutely.
If this actually was going through another country or so, I mean, everything would have been like rock bottom.
Absolutely.
Right? But I think when you say, like you said, that there are people who still want to build houses because they've got themselves acclimatized to the situation. They said, okay, we're in it for the long run. There's no point actually postponing it for 3 months or 6 months. It's just going to get worse. So possibly today is always the best time to do it rather than tomorrow.
Of course, yeah.
So that seems to be the thinking that's actually going on at the moment?
I presume so. I mean, if you look at Sri Lankans, we have always come out of challenges. I mean, 30-year-old war to, all that pressure, socio-economic issues. We have always come out as a strong, resilient community. So I'm sure that, sentiment runs across, and, people are looking for opportunities to, free themselves, invest on what they like, enjoy the lifestyle they used to have. So every possibility they have, so they have come out with, the requirements, and the banks have responded to it.
As a marketer, I don't know, this might be something that, of course, you might basically be taken aback a bit. What I'm going to ask you right now is, but in times of crisis, whatever the situation is, the first thing that's actually cut is the marketing and advertising budget.
Always the case.
It's always the case, isn't it? I mean, as a professional marketer, how do you sort of pivot from that and still keep marketing your product? Because if you can't market your product, how are people going to basically come and buy your product?
Very interesting question, Shaq. I mean, from a market, as a leader of a team, you need to be smart enough to tell your team as well as manage the budget, because you need to understand where the bank or your organization stand in terms of their profitability. So obviously, we need to control in terms of spending, but it doesn't mean that you completely halt yourself. Yeah. You need to be smart, utilizing whatever the funds you have to the best possible. I mean, if you were initially investing in terms of 6 different properties, you need to pick up the 2 or 3 which gives you the highest return, and then invest on it. You need to continuously invest, because you can't allow your brand to die right now, because picking up that is going to be a major investment later on. My advice to anybody who's listening to this also, this is the right time to put your investment on research and development. Be ready, because we are going through a recession. We are going to come out of it at one point.
Of course.
As however much that you're prepared to ride the wave, next wave, that's going to make the difference between a winner and a loser.
So what do you mean put your money into research and development? Are you saying so invest in okay, before we'll actually get into a question from Lahiru. Credit cards are the #1 cause of personal debt that creates national debt and in turn global debt, simply because people are encouraged to spend more than they can afford, creating wealth for banks but putting the economy into a long-term debt spiral. What are your thoughts?
Very interesting question. In fact, I want to come back to the interest rate of the credit card also. I'll start from that and then come to this question. See, the interest rate on the credit card has drastically increased, and that's a huge pressure. Everybody is, wow, okay, how are you going to afford it? I think that's why I said this is a solution to the problem, because if you allow the credit cards to be used as it used to be, you're supporting a hyperinflation happening. We need to control it. I think, the money circulated in the market has to be reduced. So I think it's a measure that, issuance of credit cards has come down. Banks have been very stringent in terms of their criteria of issuing credit cards, and also discouraging spending with a higher interest. Is also allowing that debt spiral to stop at one point. I mean, it all boils down to the financial discipline somebody has. Secondly, the financial literacy that you have, because credit card is a tool that if you're smart enough, credit card is a fantastic tool that you can manage your money. Because you have a 45-day credit period. If you plan out your purchases and you move into a settlement in that manner, in the right discipline, you won't fall into a trap. Unfortunately, I have been there. All of us have been there.
I'm still there. I'm still, try and take me out of it, please. I'm still there.
So, I mean, this is a problem with us. I mean, we keep on spending on a credit card.
Yeah.
And we just, trap ourselves, and we probably take a personal loan, settle it and use it again, and then fall back into the same trap. But if you're disciplined enough, you need to control. I think this increase of interest is going to be at least a solution that you're bringing in, discouraging it. And also our cost of funds have gone up. Because
Right.
your deposits, I mean, your FDs, if you look at the entire market, your 6 months, 7 months, 5 months deposits are going at 22%. 1 year is about 19%.
Right.
So to make a margin out of that, your cost of funds have also gone up.
Yep,
So
yep,
you need to discourage on this side. So all in all, what central bank has done is to reduce the cash in circulation, reduce the demand for a certain degree until your production picks up. I mean, this is the basics of the inflation and economic theory.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's what the banks are supporting right now.
Right.
I mean, coming back to the question, yes, credit card, if you misuse it, it's going to be a debt trap. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say that representing a bank.
You just did.
But if you're smart enough to use your credit card,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fantastic tool that you can really map out your spending patterns and still enjoy the benefit of that, the interest that you're going to get.
This is the thing, right? I mean, I've heard you using the word being smart about it. Yes, of course, coming from a bank side, you know exactly what the smart usage of a credit card is. I suppose people actually who have credit cards really have no idea about being smart about it. There might be a handful that knows exactly how to use it, but others feel that they have got the money and they basically, just use it whenever they want. What is a smart usage of a credit card? What are you, okay, here's the question. What are you not supposed to use a credit card on?
See, you can use credit cards in pretty much everything where the credit card is accepted. But let's say you need to understand what is your spending capacity.
Yeah.
Just because you have got a 500,000 or 1 million worth of credit card, it doesn't mean that you should go on spending on it.
Right.
Because you are going to get a bill coming in.
For sure.
What happens is whenever we spend that, we don't think, okay, so 45 days down the line, when I get the statement, I need to settle this.
Yeah.
So if you don't have cash, or if you are not at least getting your future cash flows coming in, my suggestion is don't spend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
You're telling me directly that. I think I'm still paying for something I maybe bought about a year ago.
see, for example, you want to buy some equipment to your house.
Yeah.
You don't want to delay that. You can buy it off a credit card, convert that to a easy payment plan. But then you need to be aware of, can you afford this monthly installment happening every month?
That is
You're
true.
paying in for the next 12 months. So if you forget about it and then keep spending, and then you use that cash flow to use something else, then you're in a bit of a mess. That's a financial discipline that we need to have. While Sri Lankans are a very literate society, our financial literacy, I feel that we are not there. The country is at that position.
Look,
as well.
we are one of the most highly literal countries in the world, but that's where it stops.
That's where it stops.
We know to read, but we don't know to understand what we're reading. That's the two different things, as a matter of fact. We've got lots more we're actually going to be talking about. Of course, we're going to jump into more on the marketing side with Gamika right now, who's, of course, a professional as far as marketing is concerned. Just before we move on, I'm going to basically tell you, there you go. This is exactly what I want to speak to you about. Dara's Deal of the Day is on right now. If you're watching us on the show, go ahead, jump on the Dara's app, send a screenshot of the deal of the day to that number on 075-011-7777, and you have a chance of winning the power bank that we're giving away today, which is the deal of the day, and we'll have the winner up on the screen at the end of the show. Right, okay, as a marketer, how does the economy start moving? Because if you hold back marketing, the products that need to be sold don't get sold. So, just step away from the bank.
Yeah.
Right? As a marketer, right? Economy needs to move. And speaking to all the other individuals who are in marketing at the moment, how do you move it?
See, I think marketing will have to play a leadership role in this, in
Right.
terms of understanding, in a broader picture, how it should move. See, marketing is a social science. It doesn't have to be confined to the marketing department only. Everybody needs to understand, end of the day, that your products or services need to be marketed, and then that needle has to move and the economy has to move. So how do you prioritize, where to invest, which categories needs to be moved? You need to look at from a national point of view, because right now the export sector is very, very important. SME sector is very important. So where do you put your effort in? That becomes crucial, because you cannot probably do everything that you used to do maybe 3 years ago. So you need to prioritize A. Secondly, in terms of giving leadership, you need to envision what the consumers are, the consumer behavior, the market behavior, because we as a nation, we probably are little bit lacking over there in terms of innovation in the next 5 to 10 years. We are quite happy with what we used to have, right? So I think, we need to, as marketers, we need to understand data, analyze, look at similar markets, how patterns have moved, and start working on those and push your stakeholders, your other departments, because you're the bridge between the consumer and the organization. So you need to ensure you give that leadership, convince them, and drive towards that future. So that's, I think, beyond your advertising and communication role, that's a role that the marketers have to play today.
Because advertising communication really isn't going to play a key role at the moment, because I believe the disposable income for the consumer has also gone down. So I think it's like a vicious cycle at the moment, because at the end of the day, sometimes you feel that the producers, the manufacturers, clearly their raw products have actually gone up in price. So they don't have products to put into the market, so they don't necessarily need to advertise it or market it because it's high in demand, or sometimes it's not available. So it's a loop. Where does that loop stop?
See, Shaq, one point I need to add there also, marketers need to identify the gaps in the market. Right now there are needs in the market.
Yes, of course.
How far have we adapted? How far the new products, services, process changes, how much have we brought in?
Okay.
I think that has to be spearheaded by marketing, because your new product development process development, etc. Now, take example during COVID time, some of those IT-related process improvement projects which were delayed. I mean, suddenly, you had to rush in because, people couldn't reach your, the outlet or the bank or whatever. So, right now, we need to understand what the consumers really need. You might have to make certain adaptations, certain changes in terms of your products or service, or the way that you used to deliver it to the customer. You need to understand the current sentiments and market it there. So, I think that's where marketing really needs to take leadership and responsibility and accountability as well.
Do you feel it's actually taking, though? I mean, in terms of you've got lots of friends in the marketing fraternity all over in different industries. This is the time, I suppose, if you say the marketing needs to take leadership, you have those seniors around. Have you guys actually, maybe even spoken about it?
There have been a lot of conversations. I mean, we speak to each other, I mean, as an industry, as a fraternity. But of course, keeping yourself motivated, it's a huge challenge. I mean, you go and tell your management team, look, we need to change this. Obviously, there'll be resistance.
Of course.
Why do you need to do this at this time?
Right.
So there's a lot of conviction is needed. You need a lot of data, statistics to prove that your argument is, backed up. You cannot go with the gut feels only. So, I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, as a leader of a team also, keep your sanity, keep your motivation, ensure that the team is also focused, because it's very tough. I mean, even during times that you cannot travel, half of the team is working from home, and synchronizing them, getting into that rhythm, it's going to be a huge challenge. I mean, of course, there's a long way to go. I would say we are still at the initial steps, but I feel that we can make it as a group together.
But it's worked, hasn't it? I mean, in terms of for example, most of your team members sometimes are working remote, but yet they're pulling their weight right throughout.
For me, honestly, working from home has been quite productive for my teams.
Okay.
But there are times that you need. I mean, it depends on individuals. Obviously, your distractions are very high at home.
Of course.
Getting them synced is going to be a little bit of a challenge as a group. But of course, project-wise, your efficiency levels are gone up, because there were no time frames. They were sort of eased off in terms of transportation and worrying about other things, and you have focused and delivered what you have to. So, I mean, you need to strike a balance. You need to understand empathize with them also, because you cannot demand your team to come to work and deliver the same level when they are worried about, how about my fuel, what about my gas, etc., etc. So you need to understand their pain points and also work for the betterment of the organization also. So challenging, but you need to work around it. I mean, that's no choice.
In terms of, every time I want to ask you a question, there's another question that's coming, which is brilliant. Jeevan says, with all the job losses we see in the same sectors, why is it that banks still prefer to offer credit facilities to individuals with small salaries whose jobs are not secure, as opposed to small business owners who actually have a consistent flow of income?
See, I beg to differ on this one. I mean, it all depends on the bank's policies also. I'll talk about our bank, Seylan. We have been very selective in terms of giving the personal loans because at the inception itself, I mean, personal loans is something that's non-secured loan.
Yeah.
You're based on, I mean, based on your employment, your potential employment, your future cash flows, all that has been considered. So we have time to time restricted the values, the amounts, your criteria, the industries that you want to lend into. I mean, sometimes you, from outside, you might see that it's very unfair that you've been, but as a bank, we have to be responsible for the deposited monies as well. So therefore, I think what I suggest looking at that question is, banks have not sort of given loans to people who cannot pay. Obviously, you can your credit rating and understanding might go wrong. There's always a percentage it can go wrong. But if you have controlled it, it has worked for the bank. SME sector, again, we need to look at how far the business can develop into. Obviously, the banks, the credit staff have been trained in to look at forecast, business planning, what are the potential, etc. So we have not stopped in terms of funding the areas which can work. But of course, we had taken off our foot in terms of areas that are risky and might even put the customer and the bank at risk.
Do you think the SME industry is risky? I mean, as far as offering them a loan is concerned, because banks consider SME as risky.
See, you can't generalize saying SME. Even within SME, you have different industries, the trades.
Right.
So you need to understand which trades will, I mean, for example, you look at the exporters right now.
Yeah.
The country needs the exporters to, work hard and bring the money, cash flow coming in. So if you look at the sectors which has the export potential and support them, working capital to, all that funding that you can do is going to generate results for you. Look at industries which may have, increase in terms of demands of local consumption also. There are sectors that you can really support. So you need to, as a banker, you need to understand which sectors will work, which sectors will not work at this right time. So you need to manage your risk. And all depends on the risk appetite of each bank as well.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you're in a position to actually answer this question, especially when you're talking about exporters. In the last couple of weeks or so, of course, we had huge issues with LCs not being able to open, and clearly there was no money to be for outflow. How did the bank sort of handle? How did Seylan Bank sort of handle this?
So definitely it was a huge challenge. I mean, like we have been getting a lot of pressure from the branch network, the area managers asking for their customers' preferences. So we had to
because sometimes it's actually the preferred customer, the best customer, where you can't say no, where you can't say yes to. Exactly. You always have to say no to them. But then you also run a risk of losing them.
Absolutely. So I think we had to sort of prioritize some of the cases, and certain ones we had to unfortunately say no to it. How I saw us handling was prioritizing based on the customer relationship, their attachment to the bank and their business with the bank. Secondly, how important that is to the current situation, because there are sectors which were prioritized by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, and then we have to give that sectors more priority. So based on those parameters, we have accommodated whatever possible. Obviously, we had to manage the foreign currency that we had, manage it prudently so that it doesn't get the bank and the bottom line doesn't get affected and the depositors' monies don't get affected. So we have successfully handled, I would say, but there are cases we had to say no, and unfortunately, that was a tough part.
It was a tough part for sure. In terms of marketing, I mean, you yourself have been in the industry for a very, very long time. 25 years, 30 years?
Yeah, about 25 plus.
25 years, is it? Wow, 25 years of marketing the country, Gamika, in different industries. Great job. How's the change, though? The perception and the push in terms of the marketeers that have been coming out, maybe from your batch to what's coming out right now, the individuals. What's the mind frame change like?
See, firstly, I think in terms of the demand and the respect for the profession has gone up. I mean, soon as we left school, marketing was not a profession that, everybody wanted to get into and nobody knew about it.
Right.
There was a time that it suddenly picked up and, there was a boom. Right now, I think, with marketing, in terms of the scope of marketing profession, you have many options. It doesn't have to be a brand manager itself. You can go into events, PR, digital. I mean, digital, if you look at it, whole plethora of
That's right.
potential is there, and opportunities. Right now, I think there's some good talent coming out from institutions, and people who are passionate about marketing. I think Sri Lanka has a lot of talent. For that matter, it's just that you need to give them the right exposure, right direction, and we can do wonders. I mean, there are a lot of individuals who are doing wonderful stuff out there. Content creators, you take it. I mean, that's also part of marketing.
That's right.
Communication industry. So there are a lot of avenues. If a youngster is looking at pursuing themselves in marketing, I would say that's a wonderful industry. You can pick up whatever you want in terms of your passion. It doesn't necessarily have to be a marketing manager or a brand manager, whatever. So there are so many opportunities out there.
Now we're also going to be talking about something very special. You were the only Sri Lankan appointed as a jury member for the FE Global Super, is it?
Best of the best.
Best of the best.
Yeah.
FE Global Best of the Best. Congratulations on that, as a matter of fact. How was that experience? Must have been wonderful.
Fantastic. I mean, this is the first time I got exposed to global case studies, and this is the first time FE Global is having a best of the best round, which is the regional gold winners and regional winners are coming into one platform. Different countries, so I got the chance of judging entries from South America, Middle East, Pakistan, Asia, etc. So you get to judge all those good cases, and all those cases are coming on the backdrop of COVID recovery and all that stuff. So fantastic experience, and I'm honored to be picked up for that, and I truly value that experience.
And I mean, in terms of what you read of all those case studies to what we can possibly put out here, where do we stand?
I think, reading out some of those cases, we had some fantastic cases. Sri Lanka, I mean, last time I headed the jury in Sri Lanka as well. That probably would have been my platform to get picked up there. In Sri Lanka, we had some fantastic cases out there. It's just that sometimes we lack a little bit of thinking in terms of how do you put out that case, because end of the day, now for me, I'm judging a case in South America. I'm completely new to that case study. So you need to paint the picture for me to judge online. You need to paint the picture and convince me that your campaign really worked and campaign really meant what it meant to be, and it worked and it brought the results, because FEs is all about effective communication.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of learning for Sri Lanka. It's not only for the advertising industry, the government, public sector, etc. Effective communication is the key.
The people who don't communicate are the ones in the communication industry.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you that because I'm in it for the years, right? They're the worst.
So I think, you need to understand the fundamental that, you need to understand whom you're speaking to.
Yeah.
You need to encode your message and ensure that your audience understand it. And, you should be able to measure it, saying that, what you intended was being communicated, and the result or the behavior or whatever the results has happened. So these are huge learning. Some of the key points I picked up was, for Sri Lankan learning, was there are a lot of case studies around the globe when they have thought about PR first.
Okay.
PR has played a huge role in terms of the leader role in terms of campaigns. Usually here we look at ATL, BTL, and then you look at PR and digital, all that stuff. There are a lot of campaigns with digital first. I'm sure that Umesh spoke about it last, a couple of weeks ago. Digital first campaigns, and then also PR-led campaigns. Fantastic cases, and there's a lot of learning. I hope that I can share some of those learnings with the community later on.
Lots to talk about. I mean, marketing, like you said, is a really interesting subject, and you have so many different areas that you can actually get into. What should marketers do, or what are the fallbacks in a time like this? Because it's a case of taking 2 steps forward and 4 steps back.
Absolutely, you're 100% correct. I mean, this is a very, unprecedented level of, change in terms of consumer behavior, market behavior, because we went through COVID. I mean, obviously the market conditions change, and here we are facing a different situation altogether.
Yeah.
So as marketers, I think we have taken a step back in terms of what needs to be done. We need to do the right thing, the appropriate thing. We cannot we have to be accountable of what we do. So I think as marketers, the fundamental remains, we need to understand your consumer. You need to tap into your heart and ask, do you know what your consumer want? Rather than just going with your gut and say that, this is what we want to do. Have you listened to your consumer? Have you understand their behavioral patterns, their pain points, etc.? Have you answered them? So that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. So as marketers, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Where do you want to really drive your business into? And within that, you need to carve your way in terms of smartly, being smart, carve your way in terms of to your consumer. Because as an industry, you need to move forward, irrespective of industry, I mean, banking or FMCG or whatever, you need to move forward. So you need to take the, as I mentioned previously, you need to take the leadership role in terms of directing it, which route you need to take, what is the smartest route, and be accountable for what you do.
I mean, that was actually going to be my next step as far as the bank is concerned. What's the next step forward? Because we are at an economic crisis, which affects the banks right smack in the middle.
Absolutely.
It's not like something that you're feeding off, but it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're an economic financial institution. It is your crisis, right? How does a bank go forward from here?
See, I think the priority is to ensure that you sustain your performance. It's not about not about huge growth or whatever, because you're challenged in many angles. I mean, cost of funds, the market situation, your recoveries, all that have been challenged. So as banking industry, as a bank, that if we can sustain our performance and manage prudently, if we can go through this phase without taking too many risks and falling into the trap, because if the banking sector is affected, the economy is going to have a massive issue. So you need to be smart as possible, manage your finances, manage your risk, manage your funds, and then sustain your performance. I think that's the answer right now I can give.
Can you forecast though? I mean, usually as a marketer, you can actually forecast every quarter, which you're required to do. But do your numbers keep changing every month?
So I think, in terms of your planning, you have to be a little fluid right now.
Right.
So you cannot do annual plans to 6 months plans to right now.
Does your management obviously agree on that?
Yeah, so I think, I'm blessed to have a management team and a board who understand the market pretty well. I mean, we have been reviewing our targets, reviewing our goals. Obviously, we have set up certain, challenging targets as well. Certain areas we had to drive it. Because that's where the bank can actually sustain in terms of their existence. So we have looked at our targets, our goals. We have been flexible enough to change them accordingly and more prudently without affecting our overall performance. So I think in a way that I'm blessed to work at my place.
Yeah, I know. I mean, unfortunately, there are certain companies clearly are very rigid with their plans, and it's like, okay, we've set it. You guys have to just find a way to get about and get it done. Doesn't really work, unfortunately. We are heading towards the end of the year, which is a very, very big time for credit cards and banks, and almost this is around the time that you actually plan, right? I mean, with the smirk on your face, I don't know what you're going to, I'm wondering, what am I going to ask him now? It's like, don't ask me anything, we don't know what's going on, but seriously. This is the time that you have to plan. This is the time that your planning is at a must, because you're releasing your budget in the next couple of months or so. What plans do you have in a time like this?
Yeah, so my honest answer, our plans are still open, right? It's a little fluid. So, I mean, in a usual time, Shaq, I mean, to be very honest, by beginning of September, we know exactly what are we going to do for the season.
Exactly.
October, November, December.
Right.
Right now, we are a little open, but we know in principle which sectors we are going to invest in. See, I mean, look at our community, Sri Lankans. I mean, even in terms of spending patterns, your spend in terms of your clothing, your accessories have not reduced.
Right.
I mean, people want to do that. Even during times that, the Aurdu and the Christmas were hampered last year as well, people want to buy those stuff.
Yeah.
So where the consumers are having a demand, we need to be present out there and give them the right deal.
Right.
Obviously, it may not be at the level that you used to give previously.
Right.
We may have to identify certain vendors and have strategic partnership. Maybe turned in terms of your promotion mechanism itself might have to be looked at. So in principle, we know what sectors we need to invest in, and we have certain budgets being allocated for that. We will continue to, support our consumers who are having the card and deliver them the value. Obviously, we are not going to shy off that. But of course, we need to keep challenging. I mean, our plans may get changed because closer to the season coming in. I mean, look at mid-September, in September, how the situation change, how the demand will change, etc. has to be considered in terms of finally executing your plan. That's why I said, now for the first time in my 25 years career, I have had, this many fluid plans I never had.
Yeah.
So every week I need to sit with my leadership team and agree, okay, what are the priorities for next week?
Right.
Sometimes some of those ideas, if you don't execute within the week, it might change. It will have an impact in terms of the following week happening. So you need to, your go-to-market, your thinking, execution has to be much more sharper and faster because your conditions are rapidly changing out there.
Right, right. Oh, that must be keeping you on your toes on a daily basis.
Very much.
Yeah, so, I mean, because marketers are usually like to be planned, right? I mean, they like to be, their planning is done. Once their planning is done, it's just executing the plan.
Sit back.
Exactly, but it's completely different at the moment because you need to sort of plan on the go all the time.
Absolutely.
And your numbers need to change, and your scope, of course, is also changing at the same time. Seylan was one of the banks, if not, I think one of the main banks that played a massive role in prioritizing travel in Sri Lanka. With a lot of hotel deals, tourist deals, etc. So much. Now, considering the fact that tourism is a massive requirement, how can the bank actually also join hands in pushing hospitality?
See, we have always supported our, the vendors, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry by giving them the necessary deals. Obviously, there was a time strategically we looked at that sector and promoted it because we wanted to have a competitive edge over the rest of the cards because we were entering into the cards market at that time. We didn't have a USP.
Right.
So obviously that was our entry point to get into the market and get cards in circulation. So we have a decent base right now. So whilst maintaining that, strategically we changed our direction about 3 years ago, prioritizing certain segments, and we invested our money on that. So it delivers value to the consumer. Right now, when the demand is there, when there's a requirement by the hospitality industry, we have always gone out there and supported and obviously promoted their deals across to our consumers as well. Going forward, I think, we are a bank, we are very, very responsible, and we are looking at a national cause as well. If there's a requirement in terms of overall industry overhaul and support them, I believe tourism is an industry. Although it has a little bit of a setback, this is an industry that will boom and it has potential, it will come out at one point. So as a bank, we are ready to support not only from a credit card deal, but from an advisory point of view, supporting that entire industry. We have certain plans right now being executed as well. So we are open to support that industry for sure.
Maybe it's like a two-pronged question, Gamika. I mean, we're almost done with the show. We're like 5 more minutes to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's spoken quite a bit. But can a card or credit card, or even a marketer, now, for example, you were saying quite often that you need to be there to the consumer where the demand is. But can a card or a product create the demand when there is no demand? Is that something that we might be able to look at moving forward?
So I think yes. The short answer is yes. You need to be smart enough to find that niche.
Okay.
I mean, you need to sort of see underlying demand will exist, and you can create it. Stimulate that demand and create that demand. For example, I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't have thought about settling your utility bills on an online platform.
Right.
I mean, leave aside your online platform, go into if I'm allowed to mention your sponsor, Daras.
Yeah.
Do you think you go and settle your utility bill through Daras?
Right.
We have created that demand.
Right.
And, incentivizing the customers to go to Daras and settle your utility bill. And then you get a rebate out of your payment.
Right.
So likewise, if you can anticipate and forecast that type of a demand, you can certainly create it by stimulating it.
Is that something that is required right now, rather than answering a demand and being there when the demand is that something that we can look at trying to get ourselves out of, is start stimulating that demand?
I think that's where as I mentioned previously, the leadership needs to come in and think out of the box. You need to challenge, push your boundaries and figure out how do you move it, because if you are going to do the same old thing that you used to do, you are going to get the same results. So unless you do it differently, so you need to explore new avenues, new channels, new way of saying things. Even in terms of your communication, you need to challenge and figure out, okay, what else can you do? Can I do it better? And talk to my consumer. If you do that, if you keep questioning yourself, obviously you will find that answer on a different route.
Right, almost done with the show, but this is one very important question that I need to basically ask you. Is one of the biggest issues that's going on right now is sending money for kids to universities, right? huge problem. I'm talking from experience. Yeah. Okay, a huge problem. And if I had the option of not sending the money, I won't. But cannot, unfortunately. But you know, and obviously there's only one way. The way that we've all done it, it is through a bank. Of course, you open a student file and go through that whole process. Banks are very reluctant these days. Unfortunately, banks have turned many parents down. By banks turning them down, universities have started deferring acceptance of children by a year, which is really no fault of theirs, right? Yes, we did hear some time ago where there was no problem in sending money to the children for universities. Central bank said that can be done, but once you go to the bank says, no, we haven't got a directive from the central bank, right? It's a huge problem, Gamika, especially for parents at the moment, you know, wanting to send their kids. What do kids do for 1 year when they can't do? So how can the banks help this situation out? Or can they help?
See, bank also has some limitations
Yes.
there. I mean, you know, in terms of your dollar reserves and dollar inflows only that you can manage. And obviously the dollar inflows that you're getting in, you also need to prioritize in terms of where do I allow those dollars. I mean, you have certain sectors, import that are essential, that the central bank has also allowed that imports to be supported, that the bank also needs to step in and support for a national cause. And on the other hand, the education is also important. So it's a game about prioritizing, right? You know, I mean, like, you know, there have been good situations where you had your dollar reserves and you have allowed the transactions to happen, the student files to open, and there are times that you had to slow down in terms of that. It's a very unfortunate situation, and many times, you know, people who are known to me have spoken to me, but I was helpless at that time to help them. Even referring to some of the other banks also, it was challenging times. I know we are going through a very tough period for the parents to the students. We have to, I mean, I don't have a direct answer for that.
I know you don't.
But the banks will always try to support the customer. It's not that, you know, vehemently that we are saying that no, we are not going to open student files. Wherever possible, we have done that. But the times are really challenging.
Yeah, and it's pretty unfortunate that the kids have to actually pay for this. And I mean, you know, sitting back 1 year, losing 1 year of university, we still would not know what will happen in a year's time. So they're also in limbo, don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
And things a bit. So that's something that I really want to basically ask, because it's the kids who unfortunately are suffering. We're into the final few minutes, final minute and a half, as a matter of fact, as far as the show is concerned. Covered fair amount. Quite a lot on credit cards, interest rates, where Seylan Bank is going, the season's coming up. Of course, you're a key man when the season comes up, speaking all about all that. We also have to obviously give the winner as far as the Daraz deal of the day is concerned. But right now, we shall take a quick break and we'll be back right after this.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Daraz.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're into the final minutes with Gamika, of course, the head of sales and marketing of Seylan Bank, one of the biggest banks in Sri Lanka, talking to us about the current situation with credit cards. I hope you caught the chat. Of course, it's always up on YouTube. You can always go and take a look at it. Lots of insights that were actually shared on the show. It is time for us to basically find out what the deal of the day today was, and you had a chance of winning this MI Power Bank courtesy of Daraz, the Daraz deal of the day. And all you had to do is just jump on the Daraz app, very straightforward, and send us a screenshot via WhatsApp to that number 07501117777. So many screenshots have actually come in, and the first person who sent in the screenshot is, congratulations, Sajani Fernando from Rathmalana, who's watching us. Sajani, congratulations. Your details have been taken in. and our wonderful friends at Daraz will obviously get in touch with you, and you've just won yourself a power bank, which is perfect for a time like this when we have no power. That's exactly what you need. Time for us to get into the answer of our daily poll. What we asked you earlier on today, is gold a better investment than money in the bank? If I am to ask you this question, Gamika, what do you think?
See, my answer is going to be a very politically correct answer. Your investment, you need to have a portfolio. I mean, like, gold prices will also go up and come down certain times. So you need to manage in terms of a portfolio, higher return ones, mediocre ones, the less risk ones, likewise. So I can't pick one of those.
You just secured your job. All right, then let's find out what our viewers actually thought about it. Everyone watching on Channel 1, 71% say gold is a better investment than money in the bank. 71% watching us on TV right now, and also watching us on, of course, YouTube, Poda platform on YouTube. Thank you so much, Gamika, for being a part of the show. It's an absolute pleasure. Our season comes to an end on the 15th of September. And how about sponsoring us for the next season? What do you think? I got to be as direct as possible on live TV.
Let's have a chat offline.
It's been great, Gamika. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure is mine.
And we had spoke about quite a few things as far as cards and interest rates and the bank is concerned.
Thank you for giving this opportunity, and on behalf of the bank as well as for the banking industry, I think it's our duty to educate the consumers out there as well. I think we don't get too much of opportunity to tell exactly the exact insights. I think this was a good platform for us to discuss and educate as much as possible. I hope I delivered what was expected.
Yeah, of course you did. Of course you did.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of the show. We're going to catch up with you once again tomorrow night. I promise you that Anu will be here tomorrow. We'll drag him if we have to. And we're going to be talking to an ex-cricketer tomorrow. Why? Because the Asia Cup is actually starting on Saturday. Sri Lanka's first match is on Saturday. And the Sri Lankan team have flown out to the UAE today. So lots to look forward to. Cricket fever is back in the air. We'll catch up with you once again tomorrow night live on Channel 1 Dialogue TV and our Podhub platforms on YouTube. Have yourself a wonderful night. Good night.